of the things that I've come to learn to my horror is when we talk about the United States, a democratic country, is that that's all a mythology. That in fact, we were founded from the beginning, when the Founding Fathers put together the Constitution. They were all white males, and most of them were men of property. And if you read the Constitution carefully in its context, it's very clear that they wrote the Constitution to institutionalize the power of white men of property. Slavery was right in the Constitution. Women didn't get the vote until 1920. Most of the decisions about actually who would be representatives, how the president was chosen, and so forth, rested with the state legislature. So this was most of the state constitutions limited voting to white men of property. They also gave final veto power to the Supreme Court. Now, who's going to be appointed to the Supreme Court? Those would be graduates of law schools. You had a very small number of law schools, all of which catered to the children of the elites. So this was all built right into the initial structure. Now, I grew up, my generation, we grew up in the post-World War II years, which was the time of the American middle class, and in which our democracy was fairly vital. There was a social contract between business, government, and labor that was committed to the middle class and a sharing of power. Now, somewhere around the 1970s, some of the corporate elite began to get a little uncomfortable that there was a little bit too much democracy, there was a little bit too much dissent, and that the ruling elite was losing their power. Now, part of understanding this is recognizing that, on the line from Alexander Hamilton, there have been people in power from the beginning, people of influence, who really believe ideologically that the direction of society can't be left in the hands of the masses, which is democracy is really about. It's based on a belief in the responsibility, the intelligence of the ordinary person. Now, this is a contrary to belief. It's the elitist belief that was, is akin to the, to the support for institutions of monarchy, but now camouflaged in terms of elite rule. Now, it was really only kind of in that period after World War II that we had a bit more of a real egalitarian society. And when the corporate elite started getting together, this was the beginning of really organizing what I think of as the far right, to take back control of the government and the power, and to frame the rules in ways that affirmed the power of the ruling elite. Now, one of the great services that the Bush administration has performed has been in frontally drawing our attention to the fact, or reminding us that we are not a democracy, we've never been a democracy, we are a plutocracy, which means rule by people of wealth. Now, it's built right into the system. I mean, another piece of it is that increasingly we are ruled not in any sense by our institutions of government, but by the global financial institutions, the global financial markets that hold countries hostage. If their policies are not consistent with the interests of the ruling elite, then the currency crashes. I mean, this is a global phenomenon. The whole global financial system is basically in the business. Its defining business is to concentrate wealth. And it's very straightforward when you just a simple deconstruction. That our whole money system is built on returns to money, interest returns to money, or profit returns to money, which means to people of wealth. And while wages are held constant, all the emphasis of the financial markets and policies is to inflate the values of real estate, inflate share stock prices, which creates more collateral that can be then used for more borrowing, which can be invested in inflating more real estate and financial assets. all of which is increasing the wealth gap, shifting more and more power to people of wealth, and further undermining our democracy. And of course, then they come around and with that money outright buy our politicians, who even the ones who are honest and have maintained their integrity, and thank goodness there are many of those, but in the end, to get elected, they have to have the money to buy the television commercials, because they can't really get any time on the television, get their messages out unless they pay for it, because that's another way in which the system is rigged. So to get that money, they have to go to people who have money. And this is all part of the reality of our democracy, and one of the most fundamental things that we must do if we are to move ahead and reclaim control over our assets and our lives, to do the things that are necessary to deal with things like global warming and peak oil, which require rebuilding community. They require sharing our resources. They require rediscovering the values of community and mutual caring. And that's where the real happiness, the real well-being lies, not in chasing consumer products or chasing money, all of which are geared to increasing the power of corporations, financial markets, and people of wealth. The first step to change is to change the story. Very fundamentally, we cannot create real democracy until we recognize that we don't have it. Again, one of the stories that we grow up with is that our country was founded with the perfect democracy and the perfect constitution, and therefore don't think about reforming it. And we have some very basic reforms that we need to put in, such as instant runoff voting, proportional representation, public funding of elections. These are foundational. Now, recognizing the vote fixing and the election fraud that has also become very obvious in our system, we still have the power, if enough people wake up to the reality and are committed to creating deep democracy, to do the poll watching, to get the massive majorities that cannot be faked, to bring change in the political system. But it also requires rebuilding our institutions from the bottom up, starting with our local governments. In the end, the key to this is recognizing that the only power that any of these institutions of empire or plutocracy or whatever have are the power that we as citizens yield to them. And they remain in power because we accept their legitimacy. And if we withdraw that legitimacy, they lose their power over us. Part of it is waking up to, don't watch television unless you select your programs very carefully. Reach out to a broader range of news media, particularly independent media that are reflecting views other than simply the corporate view that is consistently recited in the press. Economically, one of the initiatives that I'm involved in is the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies, and it's about bringing together local independent businesses to withdraw their dependence on the corporate global economy and begin to weave together the relationships of a new economy that is really grounded in community and works by community values. And networks, the Bali networks are springing up all around the United States and Canada. And as we begin to create these alternative economic structures, then it gives us each more choices as to where we shop, where we work, and where we invest. And each time we make one of those new choices, we're actually withdrawing our life energy from support of the corporate global suicide economy, as I often refer to it, to the new living economies and the community supportive, community enriching, growing economy. And that's a major piece of the power shift. And if we can move forward to begin to change the story, to begin to challenge the the kind of the sacred mantra of our economy, that economic growth is prosperity, that wealthy people have earned their money because money is wealth, and if they've created money, they have created wealth that enriches us all. And we begin to realize that money is a system of power, and it's actually been distorted into a huge scam in which a few people are, by compounding their control of these accounting shits that are created out of nothing, they are assuming control of more and more of the real wealth of the planet. But we can take that back as we begin to recognize this, the money system and the corporate system is a system of domination, a system of expropriation of the real wealth of society, all based on a monumental scam. And that's, we take that back, and we can begin to get ourselves on a path to real democracy, which is about one person, one vote, not $1, one vote.